friends, welcome back to another show, another Medium Unlimited show where we enter the editing zone in Adobe Lightroom. Hi, my name is Sin Lagos. I am your visual mentor today. I focus on graphic design, photography, and film. And this is a series where we explore it all because we don't limit ourselves to any particular medium, right? We explore every medium and we follow our curiosities. So today we're going to be exploring a series within a series that I'm creating, and it's called Portrait with Friends. And this series is very special to me because I've been reconnecting back to my photography, and I think one of the best things to do is to take photos of your friends. It's one of the simplest things to do. It just helps you exercise that photography muscle, bring out your favorite tools, your favorite gear. I took out a camera for this that I was just using for the first time as a photography kit, and I was really excited to do this. So I'm happy that I got to take so many cool portraits and I get to share the post-editing workflow with you. Now, this is my website. This is sinlagos.com, where you can keep up with all of the resources that I share here during my live stream workflows so that you can also use them in your journey as a creator. There are different resources like filters and templates that I love uploading here, but most of all, you can always restream any of the past streams that we've done here on YouTube or anything that I've done with one of my favorite collaborators, which is Adobe. So that said, folks, I encourage you to join the chat over on YouTube, on Facebook, on Behance, wherever you are, and say hello. Let me know where you're joining from. How's your day going? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime where you are? If you're on the Behance chat, I'm watching you here. If you're on the YouTube chats, I'm watching you as well. If you're on Facebook, come on over to the YouTube chats or the Behance chats, and we'll get to chat together. There's a community we're building here. That's always the goal, that's always the goal, isn't it? All right, so as we get started here, I'm gonna be editing in Adobe Lightroom, but I will be jumping into Photoshop because Photoshop has gotten some really exciting new features that I want to play with. I don't exactly know whether they're necessary for this workflow, but I always find myself doing a dual workflow with Lightroom and Photoshop. Let me know in the chat if you do that too, because I feel like I'm not the only one, right? So let's open up Adobe Lightroom. All right. Cool. So we're in Adobe Lightroom. This is the cloud-based Adobe Lightroom. I have really enjoyed using Adobe Lightroom. I used to be a Lightroom Classic gal, and I still use it from time to time. There are definitely some benefits to using Adobe Lightroom Classic. Yeah, a vote on the chat about which one you use would be awesome. Do you like Lightroom Classic or Lightroom Cloud? This is Lightroom Cloud. Basically, all of my files are uploaded to the cloud. I don't have to worry about doing backups. And that's a big deal for me because that also means that I can jump on over to my app. Let's see here if I can show you this while I log in. I can jump on over on my app on my iPad or on my phone and find any moment or any space to edit on the go. And that is partially the reason why I chose to transfer over. Let's see, I'm gonna show you what that looks like here. All right, so I've got my Adobe Lightroom app right here open on my Pixel Fold. And this is one of the reasons why I like it, because I'm able to use this app to organize all of my files and still have them uploaded to the cloud and accessible on the go, on my laptop, on my iPad. And you can see the user interface here is compatible with a fold, and it's not made specifically for it. It just is able to recognize it, thankfully. But you can see all of my photos, some of the eclipse photos we edited last week are already in here, and I get to edit on the go without worrying about, missing a deadline. For some of these, of course, these are shots that I take for myself and just for me to practice and revisit this craft. But I also find it really important for whenever I'm doing social media activations with collaborations with clients, brands. I love being able to edit something with my style and not sacrifice that just because I can't get back home and edit on the computer, right? So that's one of my reasons personally why I choose to edit. Let's go over here. Why I choose to edit on Adobe Lightroom Cloud, but I am curious to hear from you. Sweet. So let's jump on here on Adobe Lightroom and start playing with some of these photos. Now, what do we have here? We have this wonderful series of photos, a lot of different shots, of course. I was taking photos digitally. Can you tell? I'm gonna tell you how you can tell. You can tell because I was able to take multiple shots and not worry that I was gonna run out of film, right? Because this is a digital photo. I did feel a little intimidated by the fact that I showed up to a meetup that predominantly had folks with film cameras. I thought for a second I bumped into a film camera event. I did not, but it seems to be very popular out here in Austin. So it's awesome because I do also film and digital, but my heart has always been in digital because of all of the possibilities of post editing, all of that information that is held within the metadata. I mean, there's a reason why we have evolution. You take your pick. I think it's beautiful to know both, so we know the history and we understand more of why these decisions are made in photography, right? And I feel like that has highly influenced how I edit as well. I'm gonna lower the music here a little bit. Okay. So I've got some really cool photos. I definitely was looking for a little bit of a foreground. We've got Cassandra here as our model, and she did a wonderful job. Some of these shots, of course, as you saw from the promo, are already edited. So I'm gonna go here in my versions to revisit the original version of this. And you can see here on the right-hand side, this is the original version. Now, a tip I wanna give you is that it's important to shoot when you're doing digital, to shoot underexposed, not overexposed. In film, it may be the contrary, depends on what film you have in your camera. But in this case, I knew that I needed to shoot underexposed so I can start building my information for my post editing. And I can find all of the details in here. If I overexpose, it's a little bit harder to come back from that, right? If my sky is blown out, it's really hard to come back from that. And it's a sunny day, right? We're working with, our light source is the sun and nothing else. I do love a little bit of flash on a sunny day in daytime. I might bring that out next time. I might look crazy among the film folks, but I do love that. I do love that look. So in this case, we only had the sun, so it's very important for me to do underexposure. So what I'm gonna do here is show you a demo of what I would do for a photo like this. Now, the order of operations goes like this. I want to correct anything that is incorrect and then start entering the styling part of my editing zone. So first of all, correction tends to live in these spaces down here. So let's remove some chromatic aberration if any exists within this image. Let's remove some lens corrections. For example, I want to say I had a 24 to 70. I don't remember, but It might help to know. It always helps to know. You can also do a manual version of, let me go into my eye here, my little information to see what did I shoot this on. Okay, so it looks like my focal length right here was 24 millimeter, right? All that metadata really benefits us because we get to read all this information. I shot at a crazy speed. Okay, she wasn't moving that much, but I really needed to lower the sun. I really needed that moment to be quick, especially because we're not working with professional models. We're working with our friends. So being able to make them feel comfortable is priority number one for me. And then we have an f-stop of 11 because I started to recognize that I was, just because you have an f-stop of, I don't know, 4, 2, just because you've bought that very expensive lens, it doesn't mean you have to use that f-stop, especially with portraiture. I know it's mostly meant to make that portrait pop, right? That depth. However, if you shoot at f2, you're gonna run into moments where your photo might not be the sharp and it might have the focus in a different area. I had an occasion like this. I think this happened around here. I had a moment here where the focus landed right here. So you can see that the focus was so shallow, unfortunately, that I wasn't able to target it exactly where I wanted it, which was her, right? And that moment was lost. Fortunately, I'm shooting digital, so I got some other shots that are crisp around her face. Beautiful. That's what we want, especially the eyes, right? Some of these we can work on, right? We can always work on something that is semi-blurry, but when it's so hyper blurry, there's no coming back from that, right? So we're looking out for that. So we're gonna increase our f-stop to give these shots, especially if they're dynamic, they're on the go, they may be street photography, to give these shots a better chance at being sharp. So getting back here to our image, I feel like this one was my hero image. And we're going to do a quick shout out here to our friend. Let's go here. To our friend Cassandra here, because she's also a photographer. So if you're watching this, this is how we build communities. We support each other. So we have the responsibility to support each other and help each other, elevate each other. And I think this is one of the best ways to do it, which is to go and appreciate people's works, right? So this is her feed on Instagram. Do go check it out. There's some cool stuff in here, some really cool portraiture. Some shots that I see she's shot on her Lumi GX7, some film shots, some which I was in. So hopefully you get to see some of those. These are so cool. We went to this, last week? These came out amazing. I think this is so cool. I love how you put it together. Presentation's always helpful. So that's her account there. Please go support and follow. All right. So getting back to our portrait here, what we want to do is do some correction, right? So we can see where we're at. So we have enable lens correction and we have remove chromatic aberration so far, right? We've got those two options. And in here, you can always choose your lens. So it's able to navigate the correction even further because it already knows the kind of warping that happens to a lens. So in this case, it says 16. You saw how weird it did that warping. I had a 24-70, right? So that has a different warping correction. And this is just industry known. Lenses come with warping. I know a lot of people say, I don't do post editing. Especially when it's digital, I urge you to do post editing because our cameras aren't perfect. They need a lot of help. So we need to do a little bit of TLC afterwards, right? So let's press OK here. And so far, so good. That's looking great. So that's our correction. Now, I love doing some light correction in the curves panel, right? So we're gonna go in here and I can see it's fairly dark, of course. Can't wait for this moment when you lighten the scene and see all that information that is actually within this moment. And it's all because we kept the histogram mostly dark, okay? And it took me a while to learn these things. I would definitely I would try to get that 0 mark where it's not too bright, it's not too dark. But I've come to learn my tools of the trade much more than I used to. And so I understand how to navigate their errors, how to compensate. And these are the things that are really going to help you create the shot. So I definitely took a lot of shots that didn't work, right? Some shots weren't, for me, on my side as a photographer, it wasn't the right angle, it wasn't the right focus. But then it was also you're navigating, is it the right pose? Is it the right expression? And by right, I only mean like, were they ready? Because sometimes it happens like they're not ready. So this was my hero shot. So because this is my hero shot, I'm going to star it as 5 right here at the bottom. So we've got rating systems that help us navigate and filter through different photos so that you can take your pick. If this is a client-based portrait, then you can showcase only the best ones, right? And how do we do that? When we search, we can search 5 stars and only the 5 stars will show up. And you can see I already went ahead and starred a bunch of them, right? So here's a little behind the scenes of us. When I say community, folks, I really mean it. I know online, we live online so much these days, but it's like the most beautiful thing when you get to participate on real events and get to know each other and get to talk to other folks who are into what you're into, right? There's nothing like it, right? Visual language is such a beautiful thing, but it does kind of keep us in this internet space at the moment, right? Because that's where we showcase our work. I just love when I get to meet other photographers, and you can see here so many cool cameras, so many beautiful faces. And so of course I had to, ask, I love how her hair was just in the air there. Of course I had to ask for portraits, of course. And this was so much fun. I'm giddy for the next one. I can't wait. So I really encourage you to check out your local events. When your favorite photographers are hosting events, participate. We're no longer living in 2020, okay? We can all hang out and we can do so many things. So let's bring that back, because I miss photo walks. I used to host so many photo walks in Miami, Florida, and they are just as good in 2024. They're just as good. They hit the spot, and you come out with wonderful shots of your city, wherever you are, but also of friends with really, really dope portraits. And you can see here, I starred these 5. So these are the ones that show up here, right? And the rating system, it's going to help you navigate all of the trillions of photos that you may take if you're shooting digital. If you're shooting film, collectively, you probably have a bunch as well. Oh my God, I see John Visuals in the house and Ted's Little Dream. Hi, Ted. Oh my God, I feel so happy to see familiar names, not familiar faces, familiar names on the chat. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here and supporting me. See, you've got to put it out there and your community comes through. So let's get through this photo. So far we've only got corrections. We really push the gamut here with the lighting. I'm not pushing too much contrast. So I'm not going down too much because I am considering all the lines. We have some beautiful shadows forming on her eyes in an intentional way. They don't look unflattering. They look flattering. They're beautiful, right? I love a nice shadow below the lip because it just makes it feel like more 3D. Photos are 2D essentially, right? So whatever you can do with color contrast or light contrast to help accentuate that 3D element, which is basically an illusion, the better, right? So curves are my place to do that. I love the parametric curve right here. This is this last tool. It works a little bit differently. It definitely navigates the highlights, midtones, and shadows in a different way. So don't miss it. Don't skip it. It does help bring out a little bit more information. You see here, now I've got the shadow, but I still have information in here. All right, so now I'm gonna jump into another correction that I've recently been adapting. It's called a noise reduction. So when I go in here and add a denoiser, the denoiser is powered by AI. So it's gotten relatively better as time goes because, as you know, AI is constantly learning. And the more photos I edit, the more it gets sort of a contextual information of how to edit my scenes. So some of these textures here I want to keep. I want her skin to not look soft like a porcelain doll because that's not it. But I definitely don't want too much grain from the photo technical aspect. So little denoising can help. So let's go in here and mitigate how far we want to go. So you can see a little bit of a preview there. So that's before when you hold it, and that's the after. That's so much better. The noise, if any, is uniform, right? We've got a uniform noise. You can see the before. It's very, very noisy. Hopefully you're able to see that. Do you see that there? Very, very noisy. However, this way, it's noise that is uniform, and that always tends to be far more flattering for a photo. Another thing we can do here is that we can do a super resolution. So if in fact you're shooting film, then if you want to expand some of those images for a print, if you a printing showcase, let's say you're having an exhibition, however, you can only print really small because you only have film, right? I know you can scan fairly big if you want to, or you can scan normally and bring in here your photos and do a super resolution, which essentially increases the size. Now, last option here, I want to check off that it says create stacks and press enhance. Now, I'm streaming, folks, so this may or may not take a little bit of time. It's fine. It's rolling, so it's working out. All right, let me check in with the chat so far as we continue on here. Sweet. Awesome. So let's continue. And now we get a chance to explore the, there you go. Here's the final result. Now we get to explore the more artistic side of photo editing. So before we jump into that, I'm just going to show you what came out of that noise reduction. So if we double click here, stacks means that I have two scenes, right? Two photos, a previous photo with that noise in case you want to get back to that, right? We want to work non-destructively, and that has always been important for me because you never know, technology changes so much. Sometimes I still want the raw photo should there be a new technology that I get to use. I mean, it has happened. AI came out of nowhere. So now I'm increasing the resolution of my phone photos from iPhone 4s, from when I was started photographing in my photographic journey. I mean, that's wild. And never did I think that was going to happen, that I could go from a 9 by 16, 9 by 8.5 by 11 print to a 24 by 36. I mean, that can only happen because technology has evolved. And I love keeping my original. Stacking will help you do that. So that's what I wanted to show you there. Now that we have this one, let's continue on. Recognize one thing, that here on versions, I will be able to go back to original on this one, right? On all of these, just to continue to work non-destructively. Okay. So now let's jump into a little color editing. I absolutely love using the target adjustment tool right off the bat and ask myself, okay, how can I shift my blues? If there's any blues, that's usually my favorite part to change, because I can change it into a dark scene, a teal scene, add a little bit more luminance and more color or information might come out of that. So we have hue, saturation, and luminance. Luminance is just the highlights. And yes, you can see here, I'm gonna zoom in, not zoom out. Okay. So as you can see here, just using the luminance, I'm able to increase and decrease that lighting and potentially bring out some information in there too. Sometimes it happens where clouds were hiding under a very dark scene, and there it is once I put up the luminance. In this case, if I want to touch a little bit of her face here and do some luminance correction, I can definitely bring it down. You can see what that does to the texture of her skin as well, right? So keep that in mind when it comes to this. If you want to do a little bit of a softer skin, this is a great way to achieve that. I'm going to keep it, now that I look at it, I'm going to lower it just a tad bit so it's not too extreme. All right, back into hue. So here we have a very almost monochromatic scene because we have brown, orange, yellow. So basically all the warm colors that could exist. And I did do this on purpose. I definitely told her to stand on this wall because it just seemed perfect for her outfit. So I'm gonna increase and decrease here. Well, it's not like increase, decrease, but toggle between one end of the spectrum, the color spectrum, to the other end based on the hue that I've selected, right? So you can see here, working with target adjustment tool on a warm hue is tricky because it targets the skin. And we do want under the skin most of all, right? So if we add a little bit of green to that skin, it creates a little bit of an olive look. If we add a warmth about there, I feel like that seems fair. So as you can tell me, I look purple, but that's on purpose, right? So it all depends on kind of what you're after, what you're looking to do. So after I do that, I love jumping into the color grading tool because in here, I've got a lot of shadows. So in my shadows, I want to be able to introduce a color. So we don't have pure black, but instead we have a little bit of a color, an homage to film, because all film shots tend to have that tad bit of hue, right? Actually, I wonder if I have a film shot here I can show you. I do collect a lot of black and white films, but let me see if I can find a color one. Who would have thought? I don't have that many color films. Okay, so let's just look at this one right here. Yeah, there you are. Let's look at some Polaroids. All right, so let's see here what we've got. So on some of these shots, for example, I've got a Polaroid that has a purple shadow. I can't pick it up now. Okay, this has a purple hue on it. Do you see that? Not only is it under my purple light, but it truly does have a purple shadow hue under this one. Here's another one that these are actually expired Polaroids, which I was testing out. You can tell because the chemicals did not develop up here. So that's a telltale sign that it's an expired film Polaroid. But I knew that because I hadn't used it in a year, and they usually expire in a year. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking to imitate some of these shadows. This one was shot by a photographer in New York. Sort of randomly, we just saw each other and we're like, hey, can I take your picture? Hey, can I take yours? And this, you might not be able to tell here, but it was shot with a large format film camera, and it has a lot of green tint. I don't think you can tell here, but it does have green tint on the shadows. About there, you can see. And so we can add green, we can add purple. Let's play around here. But you can see what I mean when you know a little bit about film, you're able to recognize where all of these things come from and why we use them. Why is color grading introduced? Color grading could be stylistic, but it could also be technical, should you want to compensate, right? So we're using it stylistically. Let's jump into the shadows, and I'm going to choose a color that isn't in here. So there's a lot of warmth in here. Let's choose a little bit of that purple, thanks to the homage, and you can see how that shifts that look. Let's include that purple into the shadows and do a bit of blending. And the balance is going to really showcase one side or the other, basically more blue or less blue. Okay, that's what balance does. The blending is a little bit more on the contrast side, right? And then there's luminance right here. So we have another opportunity to play with luminance. And you can see what it looks like when we add a little bit of green. So I could say this came out of a film camera, but it didn't. Right? Because we are imitating those nostalgic features that film tends to have via the color grading tool, targeting only the shadows. Mind you, there's a lot of shadows here, so it does look like it fills most of the area, and I am making it fairly extreme so you can see it. But if we don't want this, say we double click. Oh, I love this warmth though. I'm a sucker for like a very orange scene. That's why my favorite color is orange, I suppose. I came to learn that pretty late, by the way. But we can also target things like the highlights. So highlights were also known in film to get a bit of tint. So you can see that wherever the highlights exist, not the shadows, they get that color. And we're just navigating the color wheel here so you can see how that works. So that's looking good. Folks who are on Facebook, thank you for joining, and join me on YouTube. That's where the big chat is, and on Behance, just in case if you're feeling a little lonely on Facebook. I just started Facebook, so let's see how that goes. All right, so now I feel like I'm gonna add a little bit of pink in here just to make those highlights a little bit less, I don't know, less white, so they don't look overblown. And on the shadows, I am gonna keep that purple hue. Now this is a variation, right? It doesn't have to be the end all be all. I can definitely add this as a version. What that means is that I can continue to experiment from here. So this is, let's say, my blue shadows, right? This is my blue shadows here. This is my original. This is my blue shadows, okay? This blue shadows did have a lot of technical corrections, so I kind of wish I saved that before, but that's fine. Now, let's see if we add a different color palette. Let's add something like this. Then I can get back to my versions and add a green shadow option. So we've got green shadows. Okay, so we got this one and we've got this one. Now let's go a little bit more extreme here and start playing with, as much as possible, try to make a strong shift on this scene. Now we've got this tool here called the point color tool. I like it. It's really intriguing. Still kind of navigating how it differs from the target adjustment tool, because we are targeting a color. Let's say we target her skin. We can move that tiny little dot around to change the hue. So you can see all the levers here moving about as I move this little dot. And you can of course see it on the picture too. So it's very interesting, because if you go up and down, you're increasing and decreasing the saturation. If you go left and right, you're navigating through the color spectrum. Do you see that? Of course, you don't want to go too far, because my photo happens to have a lot of that color. So I got to be careful. Subtle changes really make a difference. Double click that dot right here to get back and reset. Do you see that? You can also increase and decrease the shadows up here. Now, so this is point color. It's definitely slightly different, I think, because of the way that you're navigating the UI. So it's kind of up to you, which one to you fits best. So if we take a look at the blue up here, if we want that blue to look a little bit more purplish, here we go. We want it to look more teal. We're just going horizontally left and right to find that hue. If we want that hue to be very saturated, we go up. Okay, so now it's vertically. We don't want saturation, we go down. Okay, so that's so far how we use point color. And of course, you have this very handy tool here called the visualize range. So it gives you visibility of what color you targeted. And this is going to be important here, because as you can tell, even though I thought I was just targeting the sky, in reality, I was also targeting other areas where blue spilled along my picture. So that's something to consider, even though it is a point color or it's a target adjustment tool, target being the key word, it can still be in existence in the rest of your image. So having a visualizer can really help. So that's this little icon right here. Visualize range. All right, so I'm liking this photo so far. We've already started. I think I started. Okay, we've got 5. Now, I want to create a preset from this scene because I think it looks really cool. So how do we do that? We're going to go up here to the double circles and hit the plus sign. And in here, you're going to find all the edits that you've made manually, right? You can choose to introduce all of these edits into this filter, or you can opt out a few of them as you go. For example, maybe the optics may not be exactly the same for every time I shoot, right? Like I might photograph with a different lens. So I may not want to introduce optics, but it's up to you. But it's cool to have those options. Now we have this, which I'm gonna call portrait with friends, green hue. And I'm gonna save it in a group called Sin Lagos, which is where I save all my presets. And that's it. That's how you make a preset. I think this is really important because when you're working with large amounts of photos from the same light conditions, you get to use that preset and be done with it. So let's go find our preset. We're here under group Sin Lagos, and under here we're gonna find portrait with friends. And you see what happened there? That was in a flash. Did you miss it? Here we go. Right? So it's really helpful, especially when you have a quick deadline. I know that I've worked on events where I have to, photograph and edit and send in that very night. I mean, hopefully we work it out so it doesn't have to be that way, because I don't enjoy that. But I do have in my tool belt, fast ways to adapt for those occasions, right? So creating your filters is really helpful. Now we can see some other filters that I've got here, some really cool ones, some which I've created for phones, so they don't work for this because I shoot on my Pixel quite often, some which work for both, and some which work just for digital. So that kind of depends on the scenario. Of course, all of these need to be revisited. For example, I can add Toasty to this one, right? I can mitigate the amount that Toasty will be applied here, but Toasty did not include light corrections in the filter because I didn't have to, not when I made it. So I still get to edit that by doing the light corrections manually. So let's do a little bit of light corrections here. I'm going to reset all of these and I can bring that up about there. So that's what happens, right? So some of these filters may not be exactly for the light conditions of your photos, but if you've ever downloaded any of my filters, I always encourage you to continue to edit to befit your scene. And I will always tell you what is the best candidate for each filter. So let's get back to Portraits with Friends, which is the scene. Now this and this photo match exactly. That's pretty cool, right? I can technically select all of these and apply Portrait with Friends and have them all be applied. Let's see. Add, paste. I always forget how to paste. Let's see. So what we can do here to make them all is press copy. Copy. So we're copying those edits. And we're going to then paste edit settings like that. So Shift Command V to press. There you go. Here we are. So now all of them are being applied. So now we've got all of our photos with our color correction. Awesome. So as we continue here, oh, hey, Lucho. Hi, welcome. Welcome on the chat. Let me know where you're joining me from. By the way, I can see a few folks here from the East Coast, from Florida. Thank you for being here. I love that you're supporting me in this journey. If you're here and you want to keep up with future streams, do go into my YouTube channel. I'm taking this journey this year, folks. I'm doing it. Never thought that I was going to be saying this, but I am doing the YouTube thing, and I'm doing it the best way I know how, which is through live streaming and education. So if you want to keep up with these streams, check out the YouTube channel and all of this, the series under Medium Unlimited. I will be publishing the schedule. At the moment, it's at 4:30 CST, and that so far isn't changing. But for your best bet, subscribe and turn on those notification bells. That whole deal, it does work. So definitely do that. It's so awesome that I'm in this phase. I can't believe I'm saying all of that out loud, but it has been amazing so far. I have some wonderful people who have been supporting me. At the beginning of the year, I was at like 20 something subscribers, and now we're at 300 people. I just can't say how grateful I am for that, because I remember that journey on social media, on Instagram when it first started, and it's so cool to be here and trying to do it for this space. But most of all, I just love that I can extend my gamut of spaces where I get to teach live, I get to connect with you live, right? Because it's so chill. Who doesn't want to enter the editing zone live? So hopefully you're editing alongside me. Check out YouTube, and let's continue on editing some other shots that we have here from Cassandra. All right, so we've got a couple shots here now that we've completed these. I absolutely love it. I think it has a little bit of that film vibe. I can definitely continue on here. You can see that I did a cropping of a 16 by 9, so horizontally. If you're not familiar, we've got crop overlays here to help you gauge what is the best cropping for your scene. Now, the way I go about this is I often try to find a space that fits the cross lines, right? So if I'm doing the rule of thirds, you might already heard of this one. We're gonna find a cross point. So if I want the focus to be on her eyes, this will be a good fit right here. Do you see that? Even if she's not at center stage, even if she's not necessarily like, I don't know, completely hyper focused in the center, the grids will help guide the eye. It's a mathematical equation at the end of the day. We tend to be very good with symmetrical and asymmetrical images. We just find them beautiful. So this, you can't fight it, you know? So this is the reason why we've got these grids. Now, if you don't know about these other grids, they do tend to get more complex. Just find the cross points. So for example, if I do a triangle grid, which I often do for mostly architecture, I will find a cross point that seems intriguing, of interest. If I do something like this, your eye might go directly to her lips, for example, because of this scene. So for something like a portrait, I would recommend doing rule of thirds, the golden ratio, the golden spiral, really great for asymmetrical shots. So basically that works in the same fashion. So we've got the golden spiral, and depending on how much you're willing to crop, right, that golden spiral will guide the eye directly into a scene. And so some photos are better candidates for this. So you do got to find the right one. And so here, if I say this is my rule of thirds, and I want to find the cross point to be directly on her eye, right? We've got the cross point right there. That's where I'm going to help my viewer navigate my scene. You got to use every strategy you have, because at the end of the day, post-editing is about enhancing, reinforcing a moment that you wanted to capture with your camera. It's not about necessarily like changing everything. It's just about finding ways to make a better presentation, because that's what it is. 2D photos are only photos until you show them to somebody else, and then they become photography. Okay, we need that complete full circle. We need that viewer to experience our photos. And I do this by showcasing my work quite frequently on Behance. So if you're not familiar with Behance, I'm going to help you out here, because Behance is just the best place. Let's jump on here and I can show you. All right, so here on Behance, we've got so many cool works, so many different mediums to be inspired from, and most of all, they're worldwide. So I love I love exposing myself to different cultures. That's always what's driven me to photograph, especially to photograph the streets. So I often showcase my work here on Behance, and I appreciate everybody who likes it and leaves comments. And it's a different social media space, if you can call it social media at all. If you don't know about it, if you do, you know what I mean. It's just quite wonderful. This is Miami. This is a hurricane that we experienced in Miami. It was just so intriguing to me at the time to photograph all the sand kind of just spilling over to the streets because of this very strong hurricane. Circa 2016, okay? And then we've got some other really cool shots here, some here from New York City, a city that always has my heart. And architecture is always a big, big reason why I love this city. So, like I said, showcasing your work is always going to be important because in this moment, this is when you reach the full circle, okay? When somebody else witnesses your scenes, your photos, that is the moment that the project is complete. I know it's really hard to get your shows printed, for example, especially if you live in countries where there might not be an art initiative or a state. There are states in the United States where there aren't art initiatives. There isn't really a community. I can understand why the internet is such an important place for us to connect. And I'm not, it doesn't escape me how important that is. I know we're feeling very saturated, I would say, from social media and maybe a lot of weaponizing and negativity that we experience on social media. But that's why I urge you to curate where you showcase your work, because the internet is vast, my friends. The internet is not teeny tiny. It's not just an app. You can find websites like sinlagos.com, like behance.net, where you can find a community that just as well is doing the same efforts that you are, developing their craft and showcasing their work and just looking for feedback or looking to give you an experience from their point of view, right? We all have different points of views, and it's so special to watch how the people capture the world. These shots are from Italy. These are moments in Italy, which I can't believe. I gotta say, confession time. I kept these moments in a digital folder, collecting dust for far too long. And I regret that because these photos should have gotten the applause a long time ago. Now I appreciate them more because they've aged like wine, right? So I'm grateful for that. But I want to change that about my work. I want to be able to share it, celebrate it, whether it's photography, whether it's graphic design. I want to make sure I find the right spaces where it can reach a community and I can express my work and my findings of, this part of the earth. I live in Austin, Texas, and, I love traveling across the states here in the United States because it's like we have different countries here. That's what it feels like. And it's so special because it's so diverse. That's really what makes it special. And if you've ever been here, you know why, right? So definitely showcase your work. And if Behance your place, I'm glad because I've definitely loved this place. So that said, I also find myself often sharing my work natively in, what do you think I'm going to say? Adobe Lightroom. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's go find our shot right here. This is our scene. And let me know if you want me to edit any one of these. Next, I'm definitely going to try to jump on those, but I want to show you this because it's a very hidden feature. So this is my scene right here, right? Let me make sure it's the original one. It goes from this to this. Okay, that's the one. So what I can do here under if we open up our left panel, under add photos, we're going to find learn and community. Now, if you've never clicked that button before, you're going to be really surprised, but there's an entire space here for you to showcase your work, the work that you've created natively in Adobe Lightroom. And there are people showcasing their process. What makes this place special is that you're able to find different photos, but also find from different places, but also find their process. So how they went about editing their scene. Okay. So you can see the before and afters just by hovering. What's even better, we can remix, save presets, right? So much more, right? So I love sharing my edits here. So I'm going to go in here and say, I want to share an edit because I do. I want to share maybe this one right here. Grid view, switch to detail. All right, so let's continue here. And how do we do that? Okay, so we're going to go into the export mode. But instead of exporting, what we want to do is share to community. Okay, so what we want to do is share to our community by clicking this button. And this is going to take us to that community space that I just showed you. So let's press share. And in here, we're going to title it. So let's call it Film Inspirations. Film Inspirations. And we're going to add a description. Editing with film in mind after a wonderful photo walk. I'm going to let you hear the keywords, the keyboard. All right. So editing with film in mind after a wonderful photo walk where we explored as a community portraits from friends in Austin, Texas. All right. A little typo here and there, but that's totally fine. Now, next, what we want to do is categorize this. So is this fashion? Is this food? Is this fine art? But just read this. Just the fact that we have all of these categories. The next time that you wonder what kind of space should I enter? What kind of space should I enter as a portrait photographer? Ask yourself, what kind of space can I enter as a photographer? Ask yourself how many like little niches are within photography. The next time you tell someone you're not a photographer because you're not doing this or you're not doing that, just understand that photography is a pretty large space where the categories can differ so much. The subject matter can differ, the medium, the tools that you use. I mean, I can photograph with my phone and I can be a photographer. Yes, I think so, right? So I can photograph with an Apple and I'm a photographer. I think so. There's certain categories there that are just part of the journey. So definitely think about that. I feel like this is something that I needed to say because I do not enjoy the current landscape of up and coming artists who restrict themselves. They say, I have to find a niche. They say, I can't try that medium. I can't try AI. That's going to hurt me as a photographer. No. Evolve your skills and you decide what is ethical, what is the narrative you want to tell. You want to say, You decide what works for you, right? And there are so many subcategories that there is a place for you no matter what. And that is what I want you to walk away with. I want you to follow your curiosities and don't withhold, because I did that. I did that as an artist myself. And I definitely think it hurt me. And I don't want it to hurt you in your journey. Just lean into that. So in here, we've got all of these categories. In this case, we're doing portraiture, and we're going to make sure we tag it so that other folks have a chance to take a look at it. So let's see. We have people. Okay, people. And we have 3 categories here to fit. We can say lifestyle, urban photography. Love that. Night photography. Oh, I love night photography too. Very challenging, but totally cool, right? All right, so in here we have enable save as preset. Now, because you're here, I'm gonna enable this as save as preset. I'm gonna turn it on because I want you to have this preset for being here on my stream today. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you continue to come back. So check out the community space within your own Adobe Lightroom and find my profile. You will be able to download this preset, this beautiful green, warm preset, a little toasty, and you're gonna be able to remix it. I want you to remix this scene. So this scene, what that means is that you can edit it yourself, and I will have a visual of what you did. And I love that because I'm going to show you what happens when people do this. It's super cool because we get to see a different perspective of the artistic potential that can happen in the post-editing process, depending on who you are, right? So in this section, now we have the community space. I've got all of these photos that I've showcased in the past, some really cool photos. And what I love most about this, I'm going to share this link with you so you can have that preset. All right. So for what I love the most about this is that you're able to see the edits that I made. So if you're ever like, how did this person arrive at that edit? How did they do this? So this is my previous, and if you press play, we're able to see basically a replay of the color corrections, of the styling. This is a phone photo, by the way. Super cool, right? And so it shows you quite directly how did we arrive to this scene. And so fairly, D grade, I'm going to say D grade phone photo just went up to an A grade photo with a few tweaks here and there. And of course, if you introduce any specs on what kind of equipment you use, that will also show up here. So because this was a phone photo, which was not raw at the time we weren't shooting raw. I feel like we were, but I don't know. I wasn't shooting raw at the time, so it doesn't have metadata that tells me all that information. Usually it does. So, but it's so cool. We get to see how it works. Let me get out of here so you can see more. So let's take a look at this scene, for example. Let me press stop there and boom. All right. So let's get back to our profile right here. So I can show you a version of remixing. So I invite you to remix any of my photos. This photo got remixed so many times. Look at this. Look at how many times it got remixed. So that was really cool. So this is my edit right here. I did a bit of purple hues. And if you follow me on the grams, then you probably have seen this photo because I showcased this purple hue and I love it. It looks really cool in this scene. And then you get to see the remixes. Take a look at that. There are so many variations to a photo. And that's the beauty in it, right? We can find so many angles to a photo during the shot. But we can also find a lot of different angles during post-production. There are so many opportunities. There's so much potential to a photo to change in post-production. Some of these are absolutely wonderful. I think they have a lot of different experimentation, and I think that's the point. We are here to explore and experiment until you find your own style. Finding your own style is not easy. Does take a lot of photos before you find something that befits what you like. I love that this person changed the color of the shirt, of the jumpsuit. All right, so cool. So I invite you to do a remix natively in the community section of Adobe Lightroom so that we can check out all the cool stuff that you're learning. All right, so let's get back here onto our editing section. Let's go to my folder. Here you are. All right, so we're back here. Hopefully you got that link. Let me see here. Looking out for y'all here on Behance and on YouTube. Hey folks, hi Keys, what's up? See you on the Behance chat. And let's see here. Awesome. All right, so we're doing good on the chats. And I'm gonna edit one more photo here as we move along. All right, so I love this scene. I think this was one of those moments where I think if I don't have depth of field, because I didn't do a really shallow depth of field, like an F2, then I'm gonna pretend there's depth of field by introducing foreground elements. And that's what I was doing here. Ideally, I wish some of them were not obstructing her. And I feel like generative fill can come in and help me there, but so much of it is landing on her skin or her face, and I don't know that I'm comfortable messing with that. So I'm rolling with the punches and I'm embracing the flowers instead, because I just love the eye detail in here. So pretty. I love her eyes. Did not know she had those eyes. My gosh. So let's go in here and help those eyes pop even more so. So here's a tool that I absolutely love using. I love using creating new masks. I love using that. So this is a create new mask panel where we find different ways to select areas and only edit those areas. So you can select objects, you can select parts of your subject, for example. So here's an example. We've got person already pre-selected. The AI that powers this part of the masking tools has already recognized that there's a person there. So I'm going to select that. We could also do a different color overlay right here so you can see what's being selected. So whichever one you fancy best. Now what's interesting is that within here I can choose different parts of her body. body skin, facial skin. If you were doing a very specific fashion shoot, let's put black and white again here. If we're doing a fashion shoot, you know, folks tend to do a lot of retouching on the skin. You can select just the mask. That looks a little bit gnarly there. We can do the eyebrows. We can do the eye sclera, which is the white area, the iris, and the pupil. So I think I'm going to do the iris and the pupil for this one. We can also do the lips. All of the things that I don't have to select manually with a pen tool, I just pre-selected because AI is recognizing these are her eyes. These are her lips. So, okay, we're good to go. Iris and pupil here, and we have that mask active. When we have a mask, we have all of these different properties that we can shift, we can change. So let's change this. Let's go in here, and we do have presets under here. It's called enhance. Yeah, here it is. It's called enhance eyes. If you want to just enhance the eyes, but more importantly, observe which properties shift, because you can do this yourself. So let's do enhance eyes. So we got a little bit more exposure. It looks like we got plus 35 there. It looks like we got more saturation down here. So nothing you can't do manually, but that's cool. We've got presets as well, and that's always going to be helpful, right? Something that makes it just that much faster. So we wanted to shift maybe the hue of her eyes to something else. You can just see how easily it targets this and only this, because we're using masking tools. Of course, we don't want her to have blue eyes. We're going for a little bit more natural here, right? So double click that and we get back to her natural eye color. A little bit more saturation there, and maybe bring down some of that shadows so it's not too intense. Now with eyes, to make them pop, you always kind of want the center to be brighter and then the outline to be very dark. Usually I use like the burn tool for something like that, but this really does help using the masking tool. All right, I do see that I have maybe, let's go in here and add another mask, but this time I'm gonna add it to, let's create a new mask. When we create a new mask, we can go the route of selecting the whole person, or we can select certain areas. Like for example, if we do luminance range, we are selecting the light versus the shadows. I don't know if you noticed, but that's a theme all across the board in Lightroom. So let's say I select this level of luminance, right? You can see there. Then I'm able to shift the exposure on only that luminance. So that's where the mask resides. So I can brighten some of these, maybe some of these shadows here. I don't like how dark the shadows are around her lips. Remember how I told you a flattering shadow versus an unflattering shadow? This shadow is not my favorite. I will admit that. But her eyes kind of make up for it. So I'm going to keep it. So you can see there what is being selected. And so to help those shadows, I might bring them up a little bit so that they don't have too much contrast. There might not be a lot of information there, so thread lightly. That's kind of how this works. All right, so that is the luminance mask. Let's see if we can create another mask here. Maybe go back to people. So we still have her selected, and do one. Let's do lips, right? So create one for just lips. And now change that property to create a little bit more tint there. Just a little bit. She already has some tint, but just it helps so it pops and the rest doesn't. Now, I'm curious if there is a way for her to pop even more now that I said that. So let's see if I can create a different mask. Let's do a radial mask here. So if I do a radial mask, here's what's gonna happen here. The red area is what is selected, right? So I can do a bit of an inversion here. So we can do invert, which is basically what command. Command is invert, just command. Oh gosh, that's so easy. All right. Or we can right click and hit invert gradient. All right, so we've got an inversion. Now the red area is what is selected. That's good. So far so good. Let's see, we put it around there. We can extend it even more. And what I'm hoping to do, let's see if this works out for me. Oftentimes I do this for portraits one of my goals is to emphasize the subject more than the environment. So hopefully this helps me do that. How do I achieve that? I usually desaturate the environment so that the subject feels more llamativo, like more focused, more exciting to look at. So let's desaturate. You can see back here, this color is being desaturated. Do you see that? So that was saturated because we're masking only that area that gets desaturated. And we're not going to completely desaturate it to black and white. It's just a subtle change which helps us emphasize our subject above the rest of the scenery. Our scenery is not an obstruction, but it definitely is taking away from the focus of our subject. So just a little bit of desaturation can make a big difference. We can also, now that we have that selected, we can decrease the luminance on that vignette, right? We're going to create a vignette so that, again, the focus goes right directly into our subject because that's what we want. And let's take a look here. Let's do a version. We learned about versions. We might as well use them. So let's say flower portrait, right? So here's the original and here's the after. Original, after. You can see the shifts in her lips, on the shadows, on the eyes, on the vignette that we've created here. Let me remove this here so you can see it better. So you can see before, after. All right, so we're looking good here. Let's do a little bit of stylistic editing to call this finale. Let's go into our photo. Let's see here. I think I have a mask selected. So let's make sure we don't have any mask selected there. Okay, good. So let's go back into our color here. And like we did before, we have point color helping us select a particular hue and allowing us to shift that hue just subtly to one side or the other, to saturated or desaturated. Let's bring a little bit of saturation into her skin so it looks warmer. Before, after. That's already making it pop so much more than before. So I'm liking that so far. Still mitigating whether I should use Gen AI to remove this flower, but I'm really trying not to. So I think I have to just embrace it. Just embrace it. Potentially adding more flowers here can make this feel less unbalanced. I don't know. There's something there that is bugging me. Let's play with the cropping tools to be able to find a little bit more balance. Let's use the diagonal grid, find a cross point. Look at that. All of this space, unnecessary. We can put her in the center if we want to, but we can also put her right here. And this time she has these wonderful eyes that we definitely want to target in our cropping. Yes, I understand. Key says, yeah, the dark shadows below her eyes and lips seem to me an issue. It was hard for me to not get shadows on that one. Definitely some of these had better opportunities, but my focus was hard. So that is just a learning experience, something that happens often in street photography or photography that you're doing on the go. In this case, not, we didn't plan for this. It was just totally random. So this is a case in which I'm trying to save as much as possible and trying to find the best angle. So do look out for those shadows. My ideal shadow situation is something like this, where the shadows are landing by her face, but there's a little bit of geometry there, right? They're just landing so nicely. And even this looks like a mask. It's just flowing right by the nose and boom. In my indoor studio, I have much more control. I can control the lighting, I can control the position of my model, but we are doing portraits with friends. So it's a good learning experience for the next time and the next time and the next time. The whole point is that we have to get out there and we have to photograph. But Keith, thank you for looking out for that. I'm glad that you have that discerning eye. It's good to practice that and find those little things that you start almost developing a muscle, a visual muscle. So I'm liking this so far. It's looking so beautiful. I think from here to here, so much better. So much better right there. Now let's drop in some color grading on the shadows and the midtones and the highlights. So let's drop in a little hue here. It's such a romantic photo with the flowers. So I thought maybe I can introduce, look at that. That's so cool. Maybe I can introduce something pink. So this is where we're talking about color theory, and pink can mean something else, or red could mean something else in Asia that it may mean in, this side of the world, right? The West. So be aware of the feeling. Like if I add a little bit of green among a lot of orange and pink, it's totally subtle. It works out. But if you add a lot of green in film, this is often used to make it feel like something bad is going to happen, like something is not working. So these are subtle things that we are conditioned to understand, whether we know them or not. We're conditioned by the media. So we want to use those conditionings in our favor by introducing color theory that introduces an emotion thanks to what we know that our audiences understand about that color. Okay, so be aware of that, because color symbolism is so different across the board. Oof, that blue looks so nice. So let's take a look at that. I love that. I think that looks really pretty. Keys is saying too much green is like being in the Matrix. Yeah, absolutely. You see what I mean? You went directly to the Matrix. Oh, I love that movie. And I just love that you made that reference, because it's exactly what I mean, right? Some of these movies are so iconic and they have left such an imprint in our mind. Just be aware of how that conditioning could exist in your viewer also, right? So you can use it on purpose or not, right? Like, or kind of stay away from certain colors because you don't want to emote the wrong feeling. Okay, so let's see here how this looked. Let's take a look at this. And now this, so sweet. So we made that color pop. And actually that before wasn't quite the original. We definitely made a lot of corrections before that. So it's here, and I think I'm gonna do one more here. Let's create one new version. Maybe let's do that rose color on here as well. Okay. Let's do a little bit of rosy tint on the shadows and blue tints on the midtones. Now we're really making this look so different. What if we add a little bit of color on the highlights? I'm not being shy here, folks. That's, you know, subtlety works. And then eventually you want to experiment and try to push the gamut as far as you can. And let's see, the highlights may or may not need a color. A little green there. This is why I use versions. This is why I use versions so much, because it just gives me opportunities to try different ways and different styles. So this is what I meant by rose 2. So we've got this one. We've got this one. I'm going to delete this one right here. Pretty sure I could delete this. Oh, here you are. Rose. The version rose will be permanent deleted. Yes. Okay, so we got rose. And we got flower portrait. Let's try one more. So remember, the save is after the fact. I keep doing that. But okay, let's try something slightly different. Let's do lots of blue. Lots of a little pink there. Let's reset this or this highlight and play with the blending modes to find a different shot. There you are. Yeah, the blending modes are definitely it for this scene. Okay, so that's looking good for me. And now I can revisit and say, okay, which one do I like best? And you can let me know on the chat. I feel like my favorite one is definitely rose. It looks so pretty. It helps with the shadows, which were really hard in this case. Let's paste them across the board. And I'm going to use this final portrait masking technique here, just like we did before, using the radial gradient to help this moment right here come up. Now, I chose a lot of these photos on purpose because they have problems. They have things that I needed to correct, I needed to make up for, because I didn't get to take the shot as ideally as I could. Some of these are exactly what I wanted, right? Like, I wanted this shot, it worked out, everything is in focus, my shadow is exactly what I wanted. But when I don't get the shot, I think to myself, what can I do in post editing to help me out? That's what I think. And that's good. I've got that tool under my belt. Some people don't have that. They don't know what that is about. I would love to have a conversation on what that is about. But I have always loved the techie part of my craft. It's why I shoot manual. It's why I care to do these post-editing process. And it makes a big difference, right? Let's do a copy paste of this rose edit. Let's save our rose preset. Let's save this preset. I like this preset. Let's go into our preset section because now we know how to save presets. All right, so let's do rose. This is rose portrait. All right, we got rose portrait here, and now we have a new preset. Let's go take a look at it. It says view. Here's rose portrait. How awesome is it that it guides me along the way? Now let's pick one of these photos and add rose portrait in here. Look at all these filters. They look phenomenal on her. Some of these are too much and some of them are just enough. Look at this. Cowboy vibes is my favorite. Okay. I might put this up on my website for y'all, but it's like a treasure. It works for everything. Cowboy. I have this one and I have this one. So let's see, what did we say was called? Rose. Where do you go, Rose? Okay, Rose. That's what Rose portrait looks in this light condition right here. I definitely like cowboy vibes much more. It's very befitting. I absolutely love these photos. She's so cute. And I love that I got a hyper smile. That to me, if anything, when you're photographing a person that isn't, a professional model, you, capturing moments or telling them how to pose, it feels weird because you don't want to tell them how to be, right? However, the main thing that you want to encourage them to do is feel comfortable. And I love that in this moment she cracked a smile, because that is the best, is the top thing I want to capture, because a smile makes everybody beautiful. Absolutely everybody. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you are having a bad skin day, a bad hair day. If you have a smile on, immediately that photo is going to feel so welcoming and so enriching. So I got it. That's my shot list. That's often my shot list right here. So I think I'm going to keep cowboy vibes here, increase it a little bit. Oh, I love this shot. I'm going to start 5 because we learned we can do that. Absolutely love this shot. And then we got some super nice close-ups. These are so crisp. My gosh, I should have done the masking on this one. The shadows are so much better. There's so much detail here. Now, something I want to do before I add any color to this, since we haven't explored Photoshop, I'm going to edit her skin real quick in Photoshop, because bad skin day shouldn't have to be permanent. Y'all, I'm getting hungry, so this is my last edit. Okay. A steak is waiting for me. So, all right. So here we are. We have Cassandra. I'm sorry that I'm zooming in so much, but I promise it's for a good reason. So we have this tool right here. It's called the Remove tool, and I love it because it's powered by AI. Why does that matter? It matters to me because it isn't everybody's cup of tea to be doing photo retouching for hours and hours. So the more accurate my tools are, the smarter they are, the better it is for me. I am a solo entrepreneur. I own my own business. I run my own business from head to toe. So I don't want to spend too much time, if I can help it, doing this post-editing process that in reality, can take seconds with tools like this. So if you didn't know, this tool right here, Remove tool, not the spot healing brush, not the healing brush tool, but the Remove tool, that's my favorite. If you don't know where that is, you can always go into your menu and find that tool. Oops, I think I undid all those. Why did I do that? Okay, so I'm going to show you something here. I don't have this checked. It's called Remove after each stroke. I don't have it checked so that you can see how it changes everything. Now, these selections here, like I said, a bad skin day doesn't have to be permanent. So I'm going to help her out here. We all have a day or two where we have bad hair days. So if I can fix a strange strand of hair right here, for example, I'm gonna do it. Okay, so we can improve her skin, her texture a little bit and help out this scene. All right, enough zooming in. Now we can check that check mark and press OK, essentially, and it's gonna do a run through. Now, when I do that, I run the risk that some areas will be perfect and some areas won't be. So if it helps your workflow, check remove after each selection. Now you'll notice the difference. When I press that, I can select an area and immediately it does the correction. So I can see it before I move on to the next spot. Do you see that? That's the difference. Right now it's just doing it live as I select. And that's looking good. Look, we removed the hair that was right there. The rest is looking beautiful. I don't mind texture on her skin like this. This isn't a fashion shoot, okay? If my client has a different standard, I always weigh that standard with my standard, and then I move forward. I really dislike when people tell me, just Photoshop me. I think that is an ugly trait of the business, where everybody just chooses to Photoshop in very unethical ways. No, we don't do that here. We will always consider the human element. And I've had to think this a lot, by the way, in my journey as a photographer. There's a level of responsibility to being a photographer. I don't think people think about it enough, and I've thought about it for a long time. And just like gauging where I wanted to fit into, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then I always found myself being pulled to people and architecture. And most of all, I feel like the common denominator there was culture. And to me, I love that she's, I don't know, I met this girl and I just felt like I got to photograph you because you have so much authenticity, you know, just by looking at you. And I feel like my camera will love you. And sure indeed it did, right? So something I can do here that I could never do before is I can choose my cropping and not be limited to what information I have in my image. What do I mean by that? If I didn't select generative expand as I crop, if I just had a background default, I would have this brown area. In this case, it's brown because I have my background color as brown. But if I have generative expand or content aware fill, generative expand is better for this, then we can crop however is best for my subject. So unfortunately, I didn't have space up in this direction, right? But I want my grid to land in the right place. I want maybe a symmetric portrait here. So in order to create symmetry, I'm going to put her right in the center. So look at all of this area that is not being fulfilled, right? Like we don't have anything here. In the past, I would have to be like, okay, too bad. I didn't shoot that. It didn't happen. It didn't work. Some people may be not in favor of generating pixels. I think that in my workflow, if I'm generating pixels in my environment, and I'm not claiming that this environment is the key subject, that's okay. Do you hear me? Like, that's how that works. If you are trying to showcase a landscape and a travel environment, something that is your subject matter, like the mountains are your subject, and you've generated them under false pretense, that's the problem, right? We don't want to be part of the problem. We want to define the ethics moving forward because we are the photographers and we are living in a gray area, folks. So I'm going to hit generative expand because I have crossed those hurdles in my mind as a photographer. And I think this is befitting. It works for me. I'm grateful for the development in generative AI. And I'm most of all grateful for Adobe having the transparency and accountability to pay the photographers who helped us create generative AI. So here we are. We have an environment now completely filled, and we have our ideal cropping. So she's symmetrical in the center and more even actually, we have 3 options in our first generation. So if you never generated before for photography purposes, every single time we get 3 different generations. I do see we missed here. We have like a little bit of a hiccup right here. So we might have to generate again and try to see if we get better options. There are always telltale signs that something has been generated, and that will continue to shift. It'll be a lot harder to understand, to know whether a photo has been generated in any shape or form or not. But that is definitely something that Adobe is trying to solve by introducing content credentials in the metadata of any image I edit with Gen AI. So this photo now has metadata included in it that will always be known as a photo that has been in some way or form touched by Gen AI ingredients. Okay. So that makes me feel comfortable because I cannot go anywhere and claim that this photo is otherwise. Hopefully there is award spaces that start to embrace this workflow. Unfortunately, we do have that gray area right now where award spaces are navigating whether they allow Gen AI edited photos or not. You can see in this case, we've kept up our subject free from much of anything but some quick skin retouching in Gen AI and some environmental Gen AI just to enhance that image, just to make it pop and bring it to life even more so than we had in the beginning when we were picking up our camera and trying to take that shot, right? So now that I'm here, I'm gonna click save because I think it fixed that little bunny, that Studio Ghibli character. Oh, so cute. Is it Totoro, right? Right. So I think that did it. I think it was the second generation right there. All right, so that works for me. Some nice geometric clean background in the background. If I even want to extend this for my website as a 16:9, which I often do, I can also do that. So I can expand it right about there. So I'm able to expand the vertical lines on each side. Now, something so crazy that happened is this all developed last year, by the way. We were part of this development. We got Gen AI in our hands and we said to ourselves, what can we do with this? And I'm going to press enter so that starts generating. What can we do with this? And we found ourselves expanding images. We're like, this could be cool for expanding images. And guess what? Adobe listened and they made it an entire easy to access tool within your workflow. And that was all inspired by us. I think that's awesome. It's so cool to be part of the development. So hopefully that continues on. I continue to provide feedback. I continue to really listen in on the community and what they need so that we can all work together to create a better ecosystem for post editing. Because, you know, I've been using Adobe for so long. I definitely don't want it to go in the wrong direction and I would have to shift, right? Like that would suck. So here we are. This has worked. We have 3 generations here. I think I like the center one. We like the center one. I like that one. Now, what's awesome about this is that it's non-destructive. So all of these are separate. Do you see that? This and this. So that is our original scene. This is our first edit. And this is our second right there. All right. Now we can merge this, or we can just simply hit save and it's going to bring up this dialog box. This means that it's a TIFF file. A TIFF file has a lot of information. It's telling me here that if I have layers included here, it will remain in there within my file. It might make the files bigger, but it also means that I can edit it later should I need to. So I'm going to press OK. And you can see here it's saving. And once that saves, we want to close the file, and that is gonna then show up edited in the same way on Adobe Lightroom. Sweet. So now that's saved and it updated on our Adobe Lightroom workflow. Let's put 5 on that one. Absolutely awesome. I'm loving this scene. So pretty. And we're going to do a quick, fast color correction based on all of the things that we learned today. Eventually, Gen AI will be everywhere. And like you said, with content attribution signatures, and I firmly believe most people will appreciate the human component. I agree, Keith. I think that's one of those things where it's really up to us. Maybe as artists, we don't recognize how much power we really have. We really do. You have to understand, we are the target audience for these brands. They think of us every day, day and night. So you have more say than you think, actually. You have more say than you know. So as soon as you begin to participate in these communities where we can make changes, like for example, Adobe Max, all of these amazing conferences where all of us collectively get together and get to see these developments, then you get a chance to really make a change in these spaces, these tools that you use every day, possibly. So I do encourage that level of proactivity because I've seen it happen with my involvement in the development of AI in Adobe Photoshop, and now some notes on Adobe Premiere. Cool stuff coming, So stay tuned, folks. I love being in this industry right now. It's really, really exciting time. All right, let me edit this. I obviously cannot multitask. I talk and I try, but I'm getting to the point that I'm just hungry. It's dinner time for me. So I think that's what I'm going to do. All right. So let's do quick edit here. We did some target adjustment tool using the hue. Let's do a little bit of luminance here, reducing that luminance so that color pops. Same there. We can also select luminance there. Let's see, in our mask, we can select, it's going to scan for a person. Here you are. And I'm going to do the color overlay only because the black and white is looking weird. Let's use the iris and pupil preset. Do a preset of enhanced eyes. Boom, we have enhanced eyes. We can even enhance them even more by increasing that contrast a little bit. We don't want to go too far, right? Let's do another one for her lips. So I noticed that doing target adjustments is better than doing global adjustments. If you know what I mean by that, it means that you are being very specific about what you're changing. So I am changing everything one thing at a time. So as you can see, I'm changing the hue or tonality of the lips without affecting her skin, because her skin has those similar colors along it. So we want to be very careful and not to kind of spill over those edits. And masking is the best way to do that, using masking tools. Let's see here. We're on this and it says smooth skin, whiten skin. Do we have darken? So we can darken that lip color a little bit. Ooh, we can really darken it and still keep the texture. That's enough for me. I don't want to overdo it. Right? That looks good. Yes, that looks good. That looks good. Okay, that looks awesome. And let's do. Oh my god, there's so much I can do here, but I always try to tell myself subtle, slow, nice and easy. All right, let's go into color grading tool. Let's do our shadows. I love me a very brown tint, giving that homage to our film inspirations. And she photographs film, so it's only fair that we bring a little bit of that inspiration in. I feel like a little bit of yellow. I'm going to reset this one. And a little bit of pink on her highlights. Let's go back to shadows and make sure our blending is just right. All right, looking good. I love how this one is turning out. It's looking awesome. Maybe we do a little bit of a vanishing point. No, vanishing point vignette. So let's do a quick vignette to finalize this shot right here. Let's do a quick radial right there and inverted. And then reduce the exposure of that inversion so that most of the focus lands on her. So now we're really helping her scene. Beautiful. So that's before and that's after right there. See? Her eyes really pop. It looks awesome. And I think I like the way that turned out. I'm going to export it onto my community natively in Adobe Lightroom so that we can share it with our community. And let's call this chocolate. Second edit for portrait. A quick plug there. Why not? And we're gonna do enable preset so you can get that preset and allow remixing for this one as well. Chocolate. All right, sharing that on. And that's gonna show up on my community section on Lightroom. Let's try again. It's okay. All right, folks, as we finish here, I just want to share with you that we're going to continue these streams, portraits, with friends here at 4:30 CST. So keep up with my schedule by subscribing to my YouTube channel and turning on that notification bell. We're going to be doing a lot of these streams, entering the editing zone, having conversations about photography and design and how our industry is developing, because it is developing quite rapidly, isn't it? So check that out. Let me see. I'm going to go here so that I can show you a little bit more. All right, so this is my YouTube channel. We're currently live. Look at us being live. We're so cool. We're here together wherever you are in your part of the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up and learning something with me along the way. I love to hear feedback. I am definitely just opening the doors for folks who want to learn more about photography, design, and video. This is a series that I also run on Mondays on video specifically, and here on Wednesdays, design and photography. So go into my YouTube channel to restream any of our past streams. So many cool stuff in here that I've done in the past. And then go into my website to find out the latest streams across the board. I have been loving live streaming. I started it in 2019 was the first time I ever did one. 2020 just catapulted my streaming journey, and now I feel at home here. So I'm so happy that y'all are benefiting from this just as much as I am. Go into my website, check out all of the social posts that are also educational. I do this myself, folks, and I do it with one single purpose, which is to be a visual mentor for you in your journey, right, of developing your skill sets wherever you are in your facet, because that's how I learned my skill sets. I learned it from other creators who were not gatekeeping, who were, I love that that word developed, by the way. We didn't have a word for this before. And they showcased their workflows. They showed me new tools, and I took the time to learn. So this is our portrait session today. Keep up with it on my website on sinlagos.com. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again on the next one, and have a beautiful day, beautiful rest of your day or night, wherever you are in the world. Again, my name is Sin Lagos. Bye. See you on the other side.